simple 1D kinematics problem using the equations that we just derived. So here's our problem. Jimmy drops a ball off of the edge of an 80-meter high cliff. How long does it take to hit the ground? Assume g, which would be the acceleration due to gravity, is 10 meters per second squared. So even if the problem seems simple, the first thing you want to do is draw a picture and write out what you know. So we have a cliff, and we know that there's a ball that is dropped off of that cliff. Now, we know that the initial velocity of the ball right as it's dropped is 0. The problem tells us that g, the acceleration due to gravity, is 10 meters per second squared. And since the ball is traveling down, we're going to refer to this as the negative direction. So we'll call the acceleration negative 10 meters per second squared. Now the problem asks us to find how long the ball takes to hit the ground. So we are ultimately going to be solving for the time. And the problem also tells us that the height of the cliff is 80 meters. So we know that the displacement that the ball is going to undergo is going to be negative, because it's traveling down, 80 meters. Now we take what we know and we take what we're looking for and we see which kinematics equation makes the most sense. And from looking at them, it appears that we're going to be using 2, because we know x, we know the displacement, we know the acceleration, we know the initial velocity, and by using the second equation, that leaves us with only time to solve for, which is what we need to find. So let's go ahead and rewrite the second equation. Now we're going to rearrange to solve for t. But before we do that, we know that the initial velocity is 0 meters per second. So this expression, initial velocity times the change in time, would all be 0. So what we really have is displacement equals 1/2 acceleration times the change in time squared. So now we're going to rearrange to solve for time. So we can divide both sides by 1/2 acceleration. So we get delta t squared equals 2x over a. And then to get time, which is what we're solving for, we square root both sides. So we get t equals square root of 2 displacement over acceleration. And now we can plug in what we know. So we know that the displacement is going to be negative 80 meters per second. And we know the acceleration is going to be negative 10. So what we end up with is negative 160 divided by negative 10. So we get t equals the square root of 16. And we get t equals 4 seconds. So when Jimmy drops the ball, it'll take it exactly 4 seconds to travel to the bottom and hit the ground.